Hello, my name is Jae Wilson from Onyx Reporting, and in this blog post, we're going to take a look at using Jet Enterprise to do some variable and fixed expense reporting. Now, this blog is going to be broken up into three pieces. The first piece is going to take a look at modeling, and the second two pieces are actually going to take a look at using the Jet Enterprise product to implement the model that we talk about. Now, this example that I'm using is loosely based off of a project that was given to me by a customer using Great Plains. Now, for the purposes of keeping it easy, we're going to use standard NAV implementation. All right, let's get to the project. The general gist of the project is that the customer said they wanted to do variable and fixed expense reporting. Not being an accountant, I said, okay, well, what exactly do you mean by a variable or a fixed expense? And they said, well, Jay, a variable expense is an expense that occurs between 61 and 65,000, and a fixed expense is an expense that occurs between 66 and 69,000. Now, obviously, it was a little bit more complicated than that, but again, we're simplifying things for this exercise. When I took a look at their fact table, they said, okay, well, here are the transactions, and it seems like all we need to do is add a column called expense type, where the value is variable or fixed based off of the account number. And again, this obviously doesn't align with the rules given to me, but it's just for modeling purposes. And I said, no, this is actually even easier. If all you need is to take accounts and group them by a field, variable or fixed, what we really want to do is we want to add a field to the GL account dimension table. We're going to add a field called expense type, and then just do the transformation there. This already exists, or something like this already exists in both NAV and Great Plains. Insofar as in your stock project, when you connect to the cubes, you can find the chart of accounts, and you can drop it into your pivot table, and it will pivot on amount, and it will roll up into a hierarchy. In standard NAV, this hierarchy consists of the segments as defined by the totaling accounts that you have set up in NAV. So as I look at operating expenses drills down into vehicle expenses drills down into accounts in this range. And again, this is all set up through segmentation using totaling accounts in NAV. But the customer said, well, one, we don't have NAV. Two, for whatever reason, it's more complicated, so it has to be a field on the fact table. So we'll take a look in part 2 of this blog post. We'll take a look at adding a field, a dimension on the fact table. But it was a little bit more complicated because the customer said, well, Jay, in addition to being able to break out transactions by expense type, we want to be able to do math. We want to be able to say, okay, here we have a project. In this case, it just happens to be global dimension 2, right? Here we have a project, and we want to be able to do math where we break out, okay, I want to see variable expense, but I want to see year to date or previous year to date, or I want to see a ratio of variable expense to fixed expense. As soon as you start talking about doing math or ratios, what we're really looking at is creating an additional measure. So now, it's no longer sufficient to just add a foreign key to the dimension table, a new dimension table. We actually have to create new measures. So what we'll do is we'll add 2 columns to our fact table, fixed amount and variable amount, as opposed to just the amount field. So we'll add these new measures, and we'll use some sort of logic that says, well, if the expense type is variable, then copy the value from the amount field. If it's not variable, if it doesn't meet the criteria, then it's 0. And again, we'll take a look in lesson 3 at how we can create these measures based off of another field in Jet Enterprise. My name is Jae Wilson from Onyx Reporting. Feel free to reach me at jae@onyxreporting.com. Cheers.